What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the NFL Betting Show right here at FTN on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, and so many other ways. I'm your host, spitting statistician Dane Martinez. With me today is Sam Chowdhury as we get you ready for the holiday. A lot of people are traveling today. I hope your planes, trains, and automobiles are okay. This is also one of the biggest, go out to the local bar kind of nights of the year, maybe to catch up with some old friends who are all coming back from wherever they are. So we hope you have a great holiday. Stay safe. Get that tryptophan in you because we've got 3 games to talk about here on the betting slate. But Sam, we also have breaking news, right? Within maybe the last 20 or 30 minutes, we knew that Daniel Jones was probably going to sign somewhere. He cleared waivers, was a free agent. It didn't take long. And Sam, he is now the newest member of the Minnesota Vikings. What's your reaction to this? I mean, I think this is good for Daniel Jones. And here's why. I remember when Baker Mayfield went to the Rams for a little bit, right, under Sean McVay, and he had that Christmas Day game where he looked good, and he kind of started to build confidence again, and then he winds up going to Tampa Bay as the starter, and he's been, a top 5 fantasy quarterback ever since, taking the Bucs to the playoffs a couple of years in a row. So I wonder if he liked Kevin O'Connell as a kind of quarterback whisperer. It is a very quarterback-friendly system. I mean, that's why people like J.J. McCarthy potentially as a rookie fantasy quarterback. That's part of the reason why Sam Darnold has been able to look pretty good so far in that system with that quarterback. And he does land with a playoff contender like he wanted. What's your reaction to the news here, Sam, that Daniel Jones is a member of the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, you mentioned Baker Mayfield. Honestly, I mean, similar arc of Sam Darnold, a former first-round pick, sort of tossed aside by I guess multiple former teams for Sam Darnold. But, yeah, regardless, I think Kevin O'Connell, I think for what it's worth, he's probably my pick for Coach of the Year. Just what he's done with that Minnesota team, just thinking about the expectations coming into the season, just what he's done with Sam Darnold and just pushing this team to the playoffs, I think is incredible. And I think it would be good for Daniel Jones long term. I honestly think, you look at it the last week, it looked like Sam Darnold, when he went down, that injury looked like it was going to be serious. Like it was going to be a really bad injury. And if I was Kevin O'Connell, I want to have my bases covered as well. So I think it made a lot of sense. Who knows what would have happened if that did end up being a season-ending injury. Now at least you get someone like Daniel Jones in-house, hopefully sort of groom him, get him ready for the playoffs if they do need him. But yeah, I think just long-term, it's a great move for Daniel Jones. I do think it's interesting that they said the Raiders were interested in him, and he just said he straight up wanted to go to a contender. Didn't really care about playing or not. So yeah, I did think that was pretty interesting. I don't know what they're offering him or what the difference would have been because he did clear waivers. Obviously, right. No one's going to take on that contract. But yeah, again, I think it's just a great fit for both sides.
Yeah, I think so as well. You talk about the Raiders. They're going to look like they're going to have AOC back under center. Remember Gardner Minshew with the broken collarbone. He is out for the year. And it is going to be Aiden O'Connell, it looks like, at least for this week. We heard San Francisco being rumored as well, another kind of quarterback-friendly system. And we do not know the extent of this Brock Purdy injury, but I digress. We've got a slate here for Week 13, but we have got 3 games tomorrow on Thanksgiving, and that's where we are going to start. So the first game there is the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. Sam, let's start with you. We're going to each have a play, a lean, a total, something for each of the 3 games. That's what we're going to do here on the NFL Betting Show with Sam and myself today. So let's start with Bears and Lions. Sam, where are you going in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the revenge narrative here with David Montgomery. It's kind of weird. You see this line, and it's juiced way over minus 200, minus 220 on a bunch of books. I think maybe even Fanatics. But if you go rushing touchdown specifically, you can cut down the juice. Which David Montgomery hasn't scored anything but a rushing touchdown, right. So you're pretty much just taking the anytime there. I think maybe it's a slight discount too because of the injury, which I'm not really too concerned about. Looking into it, if it was a competitive game, he would have came back. So I'm not really too worried. We saw them try and get Monty in the box the last time he faced them last season. So I fully expect that to be a goal that they have. Obviously, winning the game comes first. It's a 10.5 point spread. So it suggests that Detroit will be controlling the game pretty much from start to finish. And I mean, this guy, he's been a near lock for an anytime touchdown. He scored in 9 out of 11 games. Obviously, like I mentioned, the revenge narrative, so even more of a motivation to get him in the box. And I mean, it's a good matchup for him. The Bears are a run funnel defense. They're 10th in DVOA against the pass and 30th against the rush. So this is a team that wants to run the rock anyway, and the matchup is just sets up really well for that. Overall in the season, Chicago's allowing the 12th most carries, 22.7, and 8th most rushing yards per game to opposing backfield. So I definitely think it's a game that Monty and Gibbs can both eat. And they've allowed 0.9 rushing touchdowns per game to opposing backfield, which is the 7th most in the league. So I think it's definitely a game where Monty and Gibbs, we've seen a lot of times that they both score rushing touchdowns, and I think we can definitely see that here. Again, a 10 and a half point spread. So on the season, Monty has 38 goal line carries. It honestly probably would have been higher. He had 8 total carries last week. Obviously, they wanted to ice him. Didn't really feel like they needed him. Wanted to make sure he was recovered for this game, I'd imagine. But that's only behind Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. And those are guys that get all of their backfield loads. So when they're on the goal line, it's pretty clear that Montgomery is the preferred back on the goal line. And against his former team, I don't think that's going to change at all. So, yeah, give me Monty the anytime rushing touchdown.
Absolutely. And by the way, I have good news for you, Sam, as well on the SiriusXM show, which, by the way, you guys got to tune into the FTN Fantasy Show, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday with me, Mike Randall, Jake Seeley at times. We interviewed Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press yesterday, and he told us after, Dan Campbell was at the microphone giving his press conference, he told us that there was no concern with David Montgomery. So the availability piece of Montgomery is not something to worry about. I'm with you. If you could shave off a little bit of the juice going rushing touchdown instead of anytime touchdown, clearly the way they use Gibbs may be in the receiving touchdowns, right? But Monty is once they get inside the 10 goal to go and that goal line back, it is Montgomery. And another thing I like about it is the Detroit Lions won't stop. You know what I mean? They're like Bad Boy in the 90s. Can't stop, won't stop. They will just keep on going. And that's part of the reason, Sam, in this game where I'm going is the total. I'm going with the total over 48 and a half. Listen, the Lions are the number 1 scoring offense in the entire NFL with 32.7 points per game. That number you heard all season long about the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff indoors and outdoors. Indoors, at home, the Detroit Lions this year are scoring 37.6 points a game. So they can get almost all the way there. They would only need Chicago to get 10 or 13 if Detroit just hit their average, all right, at home. And like I said, they continue to do it. Remember, we saw against the Jaguars at home last time. They didn't stop. They kept their foot on the pedal. They've gotten 50 burgers a bunch of times. And here's the other thing. I think the Bears offense is a little bit better since we have seen the shift to the offensive coordinator. In the last 2 games, the Bears are putting up 23 points a game. I think since the offensive coordinator switch, the 2 things they're doing specifically are getting the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands quicker. He's being more decisive. And if that first read isn't there, he's not running around like he did at USC trying to extend plays, make plays looking like Patrick Mahomes. He is putting his foot in the ground and he is running. He had 9 for 70 2 weeks back. He had 6 additional carries for 33 yards last week. So I am okay with that. He's also been more of a volume thrower. All right. There was Roschon for like 1 week, but then Roschon Johnson had 2 carries last week. So Caleb Williams also has 41 or more attempts in 2 of his last 4 games. So I actually think the back door here, the way the Lions defense might play it, if the Lions get up big, I think that actually helps. A little bit of softer coverage for Caleb and these wide receivers who are, all good wide receivers. So once there is a working lead, which I do expect from the Detroit Lions here, I expect the Detroit Lions to use this national stage, right? This primetime spotlight game to show everybody that this is not your father's or your grandfather's Lions. And I don't know if you know this, Sam, the Lions have lost 7 straight Thanksgiving Day games. I don't think that is going to happen again. I think all the ingredients are there for Detroit to hit or surpass their average at home, for Chicago to be able to kind of use some garbage time to get over this number of 48 and a half. You can get that over at Bet Rivers. So that's the first game. And I think it's crazy, Sam, that they've lost 7 in a row. I mean, they've been an improving team under Dan Campbell, but I think this is going to be the time where they really announce themselves for maybe the casual fan that tunes in on a Thanksgiving but doesn't know that the Lions are kind of the way they are these days.
Yeah, and I believe they were decent favorites last season too. I think Jared Goff had like 3 turnovers in the first half, and I remember them clawing themselves back into it. But I think it's pretty fluky. Obviously, this Lions team, we haven't really viewed them as a real contender really until last season. They've just always sort of been feisty. But yeah, I'm with you. Just with the type of mentality this team has, I do think they are going to try and make a statement. And
exactly,
I mean, you know it. I knew I was going to touch on that, their record on Thanksgiving. I'm sure the whole locker room has heard about it all throughout the week. So yeah, they can clear this total on their own. I like that play.
Yeah, I think so. Our guy MLB Dream likes it as well. He says he is locking this in now. All right, let's go to the next game here. We got the Dallas Cowboys, who I believe are 3.5-point favorites, Sam, at home against the New York Football Giants. This one clearly has the lowest total on the board. I think it's only like 37.5. Where are you going in this one?
Yeah, it's the guy that we were talking beforehand that it seems to be that we're both on. It's Rico Dowdle for me. First off, the matchup. You couldn't really ask for a better matchup against the Giants. They're 17 the DVOA against the rush, but they allow the 10th most carries, that's 23.2, and 3rd most rushing yards per game to opposing backfields. And the most encouraging thing has been Rico Dowdle's snap share as of late. So he has over a 60% snap share in 3 out of his last 4 games. Last week, we saw him get 19 carries, which was his second highest mark of the season. He outsnapped Zeke 40-12 and outcarried him 19-3. We saw them get away from those random guys, Dalvin Cook, the Hunter Lepke. It was just all of Rico Dowdle's backfield, and he's only cleared this mark in 2 games. The other time being the only other win, or the last win they had, which was against Pittsburgh. He had 19 carries. Looked dominant in that game. Against a much more tougher defense as well. So really, I think it's just a trend that when they are in positive games, and that was with Dak Prescott, mind you, which they were completely fine airing it out then. But yeah, 20 carries against Pittsburgh. Their last win against the Commanders, 19 carries. And the most encouraging thing is, unlike the Pittsburgh game, it looks like this is completely Rico Dowdle's backfield, so it may seem a bit chasey, but I think even Jerry Jones is done with the Zeke experiment now. So this is probably the only time they'll be favorites the rest of the season. They don't have to win this game. It just has to be within, I'd say, just within a score for him to clear this mark. So 50.5, again, it might seem chasey because he's only cleared this twice, but the game script matchup, everything points towards a big Dowdle game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm not going to add too much more on this because I am on the same player. I'm just doing it a different way. You're on the Rico Dowdle attempts. I'm on the Rico Dowdle yards. Okay, same kind of thing over. I got a lot of the same stuff as you, Sam. Since they have finally anointed Rico Dowdle as the lead back, you mentioned the snap share, right? He's also gone at least 75 yards in every game since he's been anointed the lead back, to your point, as long as Dallas is within a score. So the game script has something to do with it, right? And they are 3.5-point favorites. They're not usually favorites. So I think that is something. And then the matchup, you mentioned their DVOA being like 17th. Well, Sam, they are dead last over on Stats Hub. And by the way, I didn't tell people, Sam, we got to tell people, BKVIP is the promo code to use, okay? You can get 25% off of a subscription to FTN. And with that, you get our Stats Hub. You hear us talking all the time about some of these deep stats that we use to go ahead and make our plays, to go ahead and get that cash. Stats Hub is an incredible tool to use. And when I went on Stats Hub, forget being 17th in rushing DVOA, Sam, the Giants are dead last in the league in these 3 run defense stats. They give up 5.3 yards per carry. Dead last in the league. They give up 2.8 yards before contact, Sam. Dead last in the league. And 17% of the runs against the Giants defense go for 10 or more yards. Explosive runs. That is dead last in the league. And last week, I think it was you, me, and Prop. I went 3 for 3 on my rushing props that I gave out on this show, Sam, really utilizing that explosive run defense. I gave out the Tony Pollard rushing over. That one hit. I gave out the Jahmyr Gibbs rushing over. That one hit. And I gave the Bucky Irving rushing over against these same New York Football Giants. And Bucky Irving absolutely carved up this team. I think Rico Dowdle is in that role. To your point with the game script as well, I say giddy up for Rico Dowdle. Sam is on him for the at least 16 attempts. I'm on him for at least 66 yards. Well, in the last game, Sam, which I think might be one of the best ones of the day, right? Like when everyone's eating dinner, Dallas and the Giants, I mean, the total's 37.5. The early game, people may still be traveling. Detroit, they are double-digit favorites. But in the night game, I think we have two teams that still have playoff aspirations. The Dolphins are still sort of in the mix. They are rounding into form, and they have their quarterback back, and that is where you are going as a prop for the night game, Miami versus Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. Tua was honestly someone that I was on last week, and my only hesitancy was, yeah, he beat up on a bad Raiders defense. Obviously, the Patriots they're probably not as bad. They're about just as bad as of a secondary at least. But the last two games, he's finally started to look like himself, and it looks like Mike McDaniel is actually trusting him as well. He's attempted over 35 passes in back-to-back games, thrown for 288 more passing yards and 3+ touchdowns with no interceptions in back-to-back games. And he's led Miami to 3 consecutive wins. So last week we saw his best performance of the season. He set a season high in dropbacks. It was the first time he's dropped back 40 times this season. Completed 29 passes. It's a 72.5% completion rate. 317 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the most encouraging thing was it was a game that Miami controlled from start to finish. It was similar to what we saw from the Miami Dolphins offense last week when they were top of the league in pass rate over expectation. It didn't matter if they were winning, they were losing. They were just going to chuck it, run up the scoreboard. And they haven't had that luxury this season just because obviously Tua's missed some time. Even when he has been healthy, the offense still sort of hasn't looked itself. But yeah, this 235.5 line, it's so weird to look at because this was a dude that led the league in passing yards last season. I mean, you would almost never get below 250.5 in any game, regardless of the matchup. Green Bay is sort of a middle of the pack matchup. But again, I mentioned the last 2 weeks, they've just been chucking it with them, controlling the game from start to finish. Now they're dogs on the road. 3.5 spread. I'm not worried about the weather. I have heard some stuff about Tua going to Green Bay. You know, we saw him in that Kansas City game, which this is nothing close to that. So I'm not really worried about it. We even got sort of a squeaky wheel thing with Tyreek Hill going. Maybe you do want to get him involved. I mean, Tyreek Hill, if he breaks 2 big ones, I mean, he could get you halfway there. We finally saw Jalen Waddle break out. Devon Achane, he's regressed significantly as a rusher, but he's just been a monster in the receiving game, which, again, only helps Tua. Jonnu Smith is coming on really strong. So, again, it looks like all the weapons are back. And like I mentioned earlier, it projects to be a trailing game script. And I think for them to hang, they're right in the thick of the playoffs. And I think they are going to ride Tua's arm again this week. So maybe it's a bit chasey, but I want to lean towards the longer sample size that we've seen over the past 2 seasons. And we'd be running to the books to bet this 235.5 line if we saw it last year. And I think we are seeing that to us start to come back.
Yeah, I'm with you here, Sam. I like a lot of the stuff you're saying. And by the way, I'll even give you something else here that may help your case for Tua. You mentioned the Tyreek breakout as well. Jair Alexander did not practice yesterday for the Green Bay Packers with a knee injury, okay? So that's one of the top corners in the league. And if he can't go on a short week, that is only more evidence, right, of that Miami pass game being able to kind of be able to produce whether the weather outside is frightful or not in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. It's interesting. You mentioned the game script. I'm using the game script, but I'm doing it in the other way, all right? And I'm going over to the Green Bay side. And for all the bets we've made, this is the only under that we have on the show today. I'm going Jordan Love under 242.5 passing yards. You can get that over at Bet Rivers. Here's the thing. The Miami pass defense is actually pretty good. Sam, they're allowing 197 yards a game. That is the 4th lowest in the NFL, only 11 passing TDs. That is the 6th lowest in the NFL. So that has been good. Jordan Love has gone under this number in 4 of his last 7 games. He's gone under this number in 3 of the last 4 Packers wins, right? So if that game script is there, they are not continuing to throw the ball. So I believe Green Bay can get this victory at home. You talked about the game script as well. There's also likely no Romeo Doubs. Remember, he got concussed in that last game against San Francisco. Doubs leads the Packers in targets. He has 53 targets. So I know it's something of a herd out there. And there's obviously Watson and Reed and Wicks and Kraft and all sorts of guys. But without his leading target getter, that could be a little bit of an issue for him as well. And here's the other part about this. I believe that, you talk about the weather, whether it's snowing or not, Sam, I believe that as it gets cold, as the season gets into late November and December, I think this is the reason, Sam, that the Green Bay Packers went out and got Josh Jacobs in the offseason. Okay. I think this is going to be a Josh Jacobs kind of game. Josh Jacobs has 202 rushing attempts. That's 3rd highest in the NFL. And with all this talk about Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, you know who's 3rd in the NFL in rushing? It's Josh Jacobs with 944 yards. Josh Jacobs has had 18 or more carries in 3 of his last 4 games. He's had 95 or more yards in 3 of his last 4 games. He's had 75 or more yards in his last 5 games. I think this means they are relying more and more on Josh Jacobs. So I think they're going to run the ball when it's cold at night in Lambeau. You got a good Miami defense on the other side. And I believe, to your point, the game script will also be in favor of running, not throwing for Jordan Love. You put all that together, I think Jordan Love goes under this number, a number he's gone under in most of the Packers wins so far this season, and that's under 242.5. You can get that at minus 115 over at Bet Rivers. So, Sam, that's the Thanksgiving Day slate. But last thing I'll ask you is this. We're not going to do another NFL show. So as we look ahead to Sunday, you see all the matchups here, including a Friday game where the Kansas City Chiefs are 12-point home favorites against the Raiders, who will have Aiden O'Connell, it looks like, starting. Is there anything that you have your eyes on looking to the card for Friday and or Sunday? There's a couple of interesting matchups, a couple of things that are going to be big time for playoffs. Even, San Francisco, Buffalo, we don't know about Purdy, and San Fran better start getting wins. And then oh my, look at that Philly-Baltimore matchup with 2 teams that I think both believe that they're going to go deep into the playoffs. Is there anything later on in the Week 13 card that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm super excited for that Philly-Baltimore game. That should be a fun one. Honestly, I'm a really big fan of this entire slate. We'll see on the Seattle Jets. Honestly, it might be wise to sort of jump on Seattle. Just before we got on, it looks like Breece Hall might miss. They're not sure about him. I guess they're saying Aaron Rodgers is going to play, but they still haven't confirmed it. Remember going into the break, they said he might go on IR, so that's another interesting one. But you see all these tight spreads. The Pittsburgh-Cincy one, I mean, just me living in Cincy, that's a game that everyone here always gets up for. I might try and make it down to that game if I'm able to. So that's always a fun one. The Chargers-Falcons, and another 2-point spread. So I think that's the first thing that jumps out. Look at all these games that within a field goal, a lot of divisional matchups. So it looks like a really exciting slate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I'll take the 3 points, though, with the Pittsburgh Steelers going into Cincinnati. I expect that one to be one of those good old AFC North rock'em sock'em blue collar kind of games. And I just can't wait for Philadelphia and Baltimore, right? I think these are 2 teams that are on the ascent. Philadelphia looks like a team that could challenge the Detroit Lions over in the NFC. So, Sam, let me get you out of here on this. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Do you have any traditions? Do you have any kind of things that you're going to be doing? Any favorite food? Anything you do? Like when I was a kid, I went to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade a few years in a row. And if you're in the New York City area, you got to go sometimes the night before the parade where they have them all together and they inflate the balloons right there. That's a great thing for the kids. But Sam, what's your Thanksgiving going to look like?
Yeah, so so obviously Thanksgiving is like not a set date. It's on a Thursday, and mine, it's like almost like every other year. It's like my birthday's on Thanksgiving, or it's like the day before. So I have a twin brother too. So he lives in Cincinnati. He's like about half an hour away from me, but we us and the family, we go to Columbus to our sister's place. Her mom and dad meet us there too, and we sort of celebrate me and his birthday together. So it's like Thanksgiving midday, and then we'll do like cake and stuff for me and his birthday at the end. So just some family thing. That's about it.
That's really, really cool. Awesome. I'm going over, I'm in the New York area, going to be going over to the folks' house in the Bronx. And we are a Puerto Rican family, Sam. So, everyone has the turkey, but we also have something called pernil. I don't know if you know what that is. That is pork shoulder. And my, oh my, it is incredible. And so we're going to be fighting over that to be sure. And then, we'll watch some of the parade and we'll watch some football. And I hope you can get down on all these bets, put them together for a big time parlay that you can sweat out when the tryptophan kicks in. But Sam, happy birthday to you, brother, man. I didn't know that. Happy birthday to you as well. Everybody go on out there, make those bets, have some fun, have some family, and have some football. We'll be back next week with the NFL betting show. But for my man, Sam Chowdhury, I am Dane Martinez. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Cash those bets, and we'll see you over here on FTN. Oh, MLB Dream telling you happy birthday as well. But we'll be out of here, and we'll see you next week on another edition of the NFL Betting Show right here. We are for the numbers, helping you cash.